And good luck, everyone.
Thanks, Weston.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to tonight's reading. We are at the PNCA Low-Residency Creative Writing MFA Residency, Summer 2020. And we have three readers tonight: Matt Hart, myself, Jay Ponteri, and Allison C Rollins. In that order, I wanted to let everybody know we have a couple readings later this week. We will start the readings for our guest artists on Friday, July 31st at 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We will have an evening with Jenny Bully and Katie Hannigan. And then on Saturday, August 1st at 6:30 p.m., Pupe Misagi and Daniela Naomi Molnar. Hope to see you all there. We're available on the PNCA Live YouTube channel. All right, Matt Hart is the author of 9 books of poems, including most recently Everything Breaking for Good and The Obliterations. Additionally, his poems, reviews, and essays have appeared or are forthcoming in numerous print and online journals, including Big Bell, Columbia Poetry Review, Harvard Review, Jubilat, Lungful, Mississippi Review Poetry, and Wax Swing, among others. A 2020 Hermitage Artist Retreat Fellow. His other awards include a Pushcart Prize, a grant from the Shifting Foundation, and a fellowship from the Breadloaf Writers Conference. Co-founder and editor of Forklift Ohio, a journal of poetry, cooking, and light industrial safety. Matt lives in Cincinnati, where he teaches at the Art Academy of Cincinnati and plays in the band Never Knew. Let's welcome Matt Hart.
Can everybody see me? Well, it's all dark go, and the cloud never drops. Someone's fired in the ear. Someone else's lungs are at the tops of towers collapsed into deer. Not looking if we'll make it through the year. Engineers are children throwing cops. All dark go. All dark go. All dark go. Well, it's all dark go. Not invented, but a brand. And with the capital to prove, we can spin the weaponry like can. De-huddled nowhere on a star. Far away from everything we are, surfing on a Ferris wheel of sand. All dark go, all dark go, all dark go. Where the dread used to win. I'm searching high and low for fun, clawing back at all the light we bent. Mockingbird in every tear duct run. It's time to open up your eyes. Try to tell this any big surprise. When it's all dark go, you never win. All dark go. When it's all dark go, you never win. All dark go. Hey everybody, it's Matt. Thanks for being with me. That piece is a theme song for a manuscript I'm working on that's called "Well, It's All Dark Go Where the Dread Used to Went." But I'm not going to read you any poems from that manuscript. The theme song is probably the best thing about the manuscript. I think all manuscripts should have theme songs. I think I'm going to do that from now on. Thanks for being here.
Can we have a volume check, please? Thank you. Sorry.
Instead, I'm going to read you some poems from this other book that's called The Familiars. And this book had its genesis at the last residency. I went to a reading with Alejandro, and we were walking back from the reading in the rain, in the dark, and we were having a spirited conversation. And when I got back to the house where we were staying, I wrote a poem that was about 3 pages long. And the next morning, I tried to rewrite that poem from memory. And then I thought, you know, I'm going to rewrite this same unmemorized poem from memory every day until the next residency. So I did that. And, you know, I think some people say that poets only really ever write one poem. And I don't think that's true for everybody, but it's probably true for me. And I figured I would just embrace it. So what I'm going to read for you is the same poem 4 times. But it's the same poem, but they have different titles. They all have epigraphs. I call these my familiars because they're familiar. I mean, I was working on it yesterday and today and the day before. So I call them my familiars, and they're sort of about, you know, they write through correspondence and friendship and family. Yeah, so I think that's all I need to say about them. Poem to be forgotten. This has an epigraph from Dobby Gibson. That's the thing about the abyss. You can't keep it out of your poems. In college, I lived, but now I'm a skull. In philosophy, I lived, but now I'm a snail. On a tanker, I lived, but now I'm a homeowner. I lived in the future, but now I'm a pasture. In a wingnut, I lived, but now I'm a varmint. In a phone book, I was famous, but now I'm a monk. In good fortune, I lived, but now I'm heavy flooding. I lived in orange couches, but now I'm a surfer. In a letter, I lived, but even now I need a reader. In a whistle, I lived, but now I'm pharmacological. In a hologram, I lived, but now I'm plainly Midwestern. I lived in the air, earth, fire, and water. I lived to make a living, but now I can't remember. Sometimes I wonder if I ever lived at all. Poem at Attention has an epigraph from Lorene Nidecker. You've been in my mind between my toes. You live in the distance, but I live up close. The letters back and forth in an atmosphere of theory. This is how dead people talk to each other. But what death means is too much to reckon. That nuclear kitten I never saw until today. Electrons jumping like fleas in its heart. And over yonder in the pink, the images of owls stuffed with images of owls, where my throat is a wolf, corresponding and co-responding with the writing and rewriting. What could be more similar than familiar? The maple bacon glaze and the train whistle typewriter. What matters is how it's said and to whom by what channel. Also the effect that it has on the moon and its purpose through the darkness, though I may have that backwards. Is it the sky or the ocean when I see the blues that move? What I like about you is one clear thing. Your inner life's thump or its boom up close. Just exactly like always. In the juniper cupcakes, I sparkle with buckshot for the recipe between us. Forget about content. All of this is process. obscured by clouds. This has an epigraph by Robert Duncan. When I imagine daily, beginning, continuing, being is no longer reforming, but repeating. Wild in the bewilderment, I live in a horse, where I am a little horse, living under a bridge with the everyday nonsense of an ocean's umbrella, the lycanthrope's pull to a full moon's fang. Oh, drink of green grass in a haze of French toast, this writing and rewriting where I'm always a ghost, moving via virus with a star in my throat. The images of friends stuffed with images of friends as the letters pour in, new volumes pour out. Two cosmic hands on a red typewriter, two cosmic hands to one clear thing. And what I like about you is you're the same every day. But how to say what, by what channel, to whom? Is this a poetics or merely a room where bloom rhymes with doom, with archival on arrival? I promise I will be a little drastic in the plastic. Watch me make a sweater from a motherfucking wolf. Text some azaleas back and forth with Alejandro, a little hungover on the yon pink horizon. Full moon theory. This one has an epigraph from Sonic Youth. Oh, why can't I set you free? Will you do the same for me? In a full moon, I lived. In a bank, I collided. My head was wildly dented, but my heart was pristine. I remember, too, a wolf writing over and over and a sign on the wall, "You have the right to remain." But I was louder than most with my arid typewriter, with my bow tie of children and a nuclear kitten, or that book by a ghost that I wore like a crash cart. It helped back then, as it will in the future, to write everything out when I play at translation. What does it mean? I used to begin. In a full moon, I lived. In a bank, I collided. And what is a language made noisy with God? But then someone asked me to cry a little harder, and someone else mirrored my bleary pronouncements, my mirrored announcements, and the report of a gun. I traveled a long distance between abstraction and distortion, between a rock in all our pockets and an owl stuffed with images. In my memory, I'm sure I loved my family more than anything. I'm what you would have called foolish when the silver spilled my blood and let it run where it wanted, let it run where it would, and my soul dissipated and my family moved on. My eyes covered over with a sheep's rough wool. I lived in that sweater. I lived a bitter fool in a wild contradiction without any irritable reaching. I lived in a music that no one ever heard. My dog collar jangled, punk as fuck in the woods. This is the third section. This is from another thing that I'm working on. It also has its genesis with Alejandro. I'm sorry, friend. We were in a bookstore in January, and I found this book by the poet and critic Leon Felipe. He was an anti-fascist Spanish poet who fought for the Republic in the Spanish Civil War. And when the fascists came to power, he exiled himself to Mexico, where he spent the rest of his life. And while he was there, he did this little book where he translated Walt Whitman's Song of Myself into Spanish. And he also wrote 9 poems in response to Whitman's poem in this book. And when I was looking at the book, I just picked it up because I loved it so much. I liked the way that it looked. I thought it was really a beautiful book. And I've been doing this thing for a long time that I call obliteration, where I translate a text from another language, and then I start working with that in a variety of different ways to produce an entirely new poem. So I am now 11 sections into translating Song of Myself from Leon Felipe's Spanish back into English to make something totally new, I hope. So I'm going to read you the first 3 sections. This is the first three sections of At Night I Sing My Heads to Sleep. 1. Now I obliterate this song to myself, but when I do, it's also you behind the papery wall, because you are as much a part of the original that was as I am an atom at the heart of a star, an old man's beard, or a ladybug. I wonder about it, and I encourage my words to wander about in it, to associate freely with enemies and friends. I aspire to wonder and lay myself down on my face on the ground to watch the summer grass grow slow, which is fast, faster than in any other season. My voice and every image of me on the internet came from right here, right now, from this obliterating energy and from these familiar molecules. I was bitched by parents who were bitched here, of people who were bothered by other people bitched there, and of the children of this obliteration and a translator. I'm 50 years old. My heart is a jelly-filled Ebel skeever, and with my incandescent theories, I begin to transform one day into another, so that stopping isn't an option, not until the end, which is something I don't even want to think about. Let the schools of correctness shut the fuck up. Hang around in the gloom of the known if you want, to your boredom. I know what your mission is, and I will not forget it. Let no one forget it. I spill my guts in many fractions of a second beyond the good and evil, mostly evil, of the always constant news. Not just anyone is worth listening to, clearly. So with me, you get to decide if you're interested or not, obliterating liberally the past and the present for a future possibility increasingly unnatural with a hoarseness. 2. These forms and stanzas are loaded with essences. These lines and sentences are loaded with hooks. I open my mouth and feel pleased in the glue stick, and no apologies for the changes to the framework in the process. I'm a rebel. I'm a rebel, and I bunny hop, Death Star, the works. The perfumey air around is not a dissonance. It does not taste like an elephant's exhaust. It is murderless, a fountain of youth, and I gulp it and adore it like a friend in a spasm. Willingly, I go to the window in the trees and undress crazily so you'll touch me with your blueprints. I like to breathe the breath of my fog, the swimming pool skateboarders, the jellyfish kite as it soars above the spruce, and the forklift lifting a birdhouse off my chest. I like to hear the cars' awful honks, the hornets, the ice cream truck drivers. I like to feel shoved, fundamentally off kilter, bursting like a balloon animal at the volume of many amps, and the blood of my blood and the fiber optic cables, the innocent infractions of a cool breezes movement, a wide receiver's dance in the end zone's deep end. I like to smell the arugula leaves and the dried oregano leaves, the onyx-strewn beaches and hay bales of paint. I like to hear the rag doll of moss in my voice, kicking up dust on a polka dot horizon. I like to press my lips to yours, to feel your arms engulf my form and live in the letter's eternal correspondence. I like to play among the shadows of eagles' wings, shaking the trees with their weird silent engines. I like to feel alone in the crowd at a punk show, kicked in the back of the head in the pit with a Schlitz or an old style poured down my shirt. I like to be owlish beneath the full moon and get up singing summer to greet the morning sun, crescendoing and decrescendoed. All is quiet, sun is tell-all and bleeding from the nose. Neighborhood explodes. What did you expect? That I would settle for a few unmuted meat scraps? Did you think the dark matter of the universe would be too much for me? Why are you even literate if you don't know how to obliterate authority? Crane with me today. Count with me the weeks in a year, and I will show you how Song of Myself becomes Canto a mí mismo, becomes At Night I Sing My Heads to Sleep, and so on. Then you will be able to make your own new song. There are billions of songs inside any one you know. And you will recycle and appropriate, remix and collaborate, melt down and return. Your dead eyes won't die anymore. The ghosts in your books will fuel your own. Neither will you see into the world using my lantern or wring the little pillows of bees from my hands. You will get to listen in every direction at once, and your spirit, thus inspirited, will echo through the universe, exactly like my spirit, yet totally different. 3. I heard some noisemakers go from bang to revelations, but I am not going from bang to revelations. Life is only present tense. The word is young, the word is old. The white page is perfect, but maybe more so when it's blackened. Right now is paradise. Right now is hell. Writing and rewriting, writing and rewriting, wronging too, unfortunately, wronging. Writing, always obliterating the past and the present for the future. Walking the other day in the shadow of an eagle, I felt small and contradictory, but I wanted to be a complement, a substantial contributor that multiplies. Sex always a mesh of identities and differences, and blooming into blood along the path of pain, roller coaster pain, miracle pain. Perfectionism, the offspring of intention, is a trap. This is already known by the children, so they don't intend it. They attend to a butterfly flagging a soldier, steady, hammered, connected, embracing every stick figure, resisting every fence, every coffin, every expectation, mulishly and loving too, impious, supercharged, me and you and the mystical swarm. Translucent and restless, my ghost goes on without me, obviously. My body's involuntary motions also go on without me until they don't. But everything that is not my ghost is in part ghostly too. If any part is missing, everything is missing. There are more invisible things in the world than visible ones, but the invisible ones are what make us who we are. Morality has been long discussed, sometimes obliterated too, but the correspondence between good and bad, which is a co-respondence, don't forget, is in the indifference of the meta and the physical worlds to human achievement and sinfulness both. I don't feel the need to prove anything on social media. I feel the need to shut the fuck up and go jump in a lake where my body just floats. I am a wreckage of failure and success, just as you are also. I am not better than anybody else. I am very probably worse than a lot of people, and yet all of my particles vibrate the same, and the invisible me, the ghost, could care less. That doesn't mean I shouldn't try always and ever to be better, to really see people, to try and find our contiguous feet, to cook a weird meal, and then sing our heads to sleep. When my wife Melanie, who has been with me for 23 years, gets up early and makes coffee and feeds and waters the dog, then takes off to do CrossFit, leaving me with last night's dishes and a note by the sink that says, "Dear dude, please dust and vacuum too. Love ya." I am buoyant in the flood of her energy and good humor. I do the dishes and dance in the clatter. I drink the last cup of the coffee she made. I get on with my chores for both of our sakes. The value is in knowing that she loves me. Thank you.
I can only imagine his seventh grade teacher.
Matt, thank you. Beautiful, beautiful. Hi there. My name is Jay Ponteri, and I have a book coming out next year. It's called Lobe, L-O-B-E, as in prefrontal lobe. And I'm gonna read to you all. We are in the residency, we're sort of, we're entering the middle, the very extended middle period of the residency. And I love that part. The extended middle part of the residency is when the fatigue really starts. So if you're feeling it, if you're feeling tired, feel free to close your eyes and just relax, and don't worry about paying attention for the next 9 or so minutes. There's going to be some background noise that'll kind of come into the reading. Acknowledging Yo La Tengo. And finally, I'm going to read to you what is the last sentence of the book, but not the entire sentence. That would take me over an hour. The sentence is probably 25 pages long. So I'm just going to read you a bit of the last sentence. And this section is called incubation. When this sentence ends, the book will be finished. I tend to write very long paragraphs I call unparagraphs. A small journal, the smell of warm toast spread with butter and jam, exposed even to the worst natural forces, sub-zero temperatures, invisible whiteness, storms of wind and rain and snow, the cicadas swimming in the humid summer woods. One etymology of the word incubation is the Latin incubare, meaning to brood upon or watch with jealousy. It is Mom who watches me, who stands behind a plate glass window in a viewing, brooding room with other parents, viewing, brooding their premature babies. The incubator allowing tiny undeveloped organs to develop, protecting me from toxins, viruses, germs the air carries. My body needs a certain amount of stillness just to function, to swallow liquids, to breathe the enriched oxygen, to pee and to poo. So hot in that incubator, hot pouring through the glass ceiling and rising from within my tiny bird body, my jaybird body. If the baby begins to bond with Mom through touch, smell, sound of voice, and feeding through breast, with whom does the premature baby of 1971 bond? And without even wearing a diaper, I have no pockets for my little hands. So I touch my fingertips to my palm of hands, as the sloth's best defense is to completely still its hanging body. The word disappointment originates from the Middle French, meaning to be dispossessed of an appointed office, removed from elected office, and clearly nobody has removed me from office. I have dispossessed myself from the office of my marriage. The office is now vacant, and the disappointment of others disorients me, dislocates me, makes me strange to both myself and those disappointed in me. The warm toast. You can't stop things from coming together then falling apart, for that's the natural flow of animate beings, Pima. So I average 6 hours of sleep per night. My grandmother sat next to me. She stood next to me, sitting on the toilet. She suggested I hold conversations with the robins and swifts flitting around on the bathroom's paper. I'm haunted by all the possibilities, by the many selves that exist inside each of us, the various paths I chose not to, not living in Prague, the many times I might have died or disabled myself, blinded myself, becoming a forester who drives a snowmobile across snowfields through remote stretches of wilderness, counting gray wolves, playing drums for Barbarian, staying with Tanya, all to say I could have chosen otherwise. There is a gap between our dreams and what we do, and let's call that gap the wound. Floorboards, old disused machines, no longer serviceable, windows covered with cardboard. If they're dead, their lives I never knew haunt me. Robert Walser haunts me. Robert Walser sitting in a cafe in Berlin. What is he to do with his eyes? Where is he to direct his gaze? This t-shirt I'm wearing, this pug on my t-shirt, at the waitress carrying the dumplings, at the woman wearing a rose-colored silk blouse sitting at the table next, listening with what seems like boredom, not even attempting or feigning interest, to her interlocutor. What does he do with his eyes? I dream into Robert Walser's confusion in order to consider Berlin, 1904, the clacking, swirling rumble of a streetcar sliding unevenly in its tracks. What Robert Walser's nervousness feels like to me. Dropping my hand, I dream into memory. And if they wouldn't mind turning their eyes away from me, the milk spraying out of my nose after my grandpa's wake, after seeing a dead man in a casket, after thinking, is this body in the coffin the same body I called Grandpa? After the wake, my dad dropped me off at Karen's house, and Karen and I watched a movie together, a video cassette. I can't recall which title. We sat on the floor, leaning against the couch, and drank hot cocoa and ate Christmas cookies. I'm not the person seated in the airliner. Like little lips puckering open, perhaps at the gaslight hanging from the ceiling. When I'm with you, I'm nothing but Hart, pretending to pitch for a Major League Baseball team. The food cart out selling tacos. By the time we arrived, and I'm writing right this minute, I'm writing for 24, 48, 78 hours. Oh, incubator, you protect me from toxins that attend touch. Here, I only touch myself, am touched by myself. The noise in here hurts my ears, my fingertip cushions. The ventilator whooshes and squashes and hisses. There's creaking too. I want my words, the possibilities of those words. I want to eat a Oaxacan taco in the Roma neighborhood of Ciudad de Mexico. I want to find a chaiwala in Kolkata, dressed wounds in Seville, walk to an office job in Lagos City. I'm not putting on my space helmet. I'm not sitting on the floor against the couch next to Karen. Karen and I are no longer 14 years old. Thank you. All right. I am going to introduce Allison now. I have to put on cow mask to do that. So Allison, this is not in your bio, but Allison's book, The Library of Small Catastrophe, was just nominated for a Legacy Award. Yay. Allison C Rollins, born and raised in St. Louis City, currently works as the lead teaching and learning librarian for Colorado College. She also serves as faculty for our very program. She is a 2019 National Endowment for the Arts of Literature Fellow. Her poems have appeared in American Poetry Review, Black Warrior Review, Crazy Horse, Indiana Review, Hayden's Ferry Review, Missouri Review, the New York Times Magazine, Poetry, the Poetry Review, Tri-Quarterly, and elsewhere. A Cave Canem and Callaloo Fellow. She is also a 2016 recipient of the Poetry Foundation's Ruth Lilly and Dorothy Sargent Rosenberg Fellowship. In 2018, she was the recipient of a Rona Jaffe Writers Award, and in 2020, the winner of a Pushcart Prize. Her debut poetry collection, which I mentioned, is published by Copper Canyon Press. It's called The Library of Small Catastrophes. I recommend it. Allison C Rollins.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you also to Matt. That was fantastic. I'm going to jump around reading a nonfiction essay I'm working on called Dispatch from the Racial Mountain. It includes language of a mad scientist, which is found text, not my own words. I use what could be considered an ableist slur in terms of playing or acting dumb. In it, I discuss going to visit a fortune teller, if you will, here in Colorado Springs. And I want to state that I do not hold any of his particular opinions. They are not necessarily my own. Some of them are racist and highly problematic. So when I am reading dialogue or things that he said, they're not opinions that I necessarily subscribe to. I wanted to start my reading with a little bit of a show and tell, some objects that I wanted to call into the space, into the Zoom portal, that are in conversation with some of the snippets that I'm going to read. So the first is a ancestry DNA kit. I have two younger sisters. We share, to my knowledge, the same parents, the same mother and father. But my mother, for Christmas this past holiday, gave each of us our own ancestry DNA kit. And one of my sisters submitted the kit to find her findings, and I just took her findings to be my own. So I have this archive of the different components of what you would mail in, the swab to take your saliva, et cetera. And I've been holding it close in the notion that I may have trouble getting access to a COVID-19 test, but I can somehow probably mail in my ancestry DNA kits with my saliva and get access to that. In the essay I'm going to read, I mentioned being in a Safeway grocery store and wearing a burgundy dress with turquoise embroidery. So this is the dress that I am referring to in the essay. So I just wanted to show it to you all. It's made by a brand called Free People, which I reference in the essay, and it's made in India. So this is the dress. This is the business card that I will reference in the essay that was given to me by Gerald, is his name. He is known as the Gifted Cowboy. So in the essay, I'll reference the eagle on the business card, as well as the ombre coloring. And Gerald offers readings of voice and eyes. So this is what Gerald gave to me in the grocery store. When I went to Gerald's home to have my reading done, he felt that this necklace carried the same energy that I do. So it was a gift that he gave to me when I left. And so showing you all the necklace. And then lastly, this is a copy of Alice in Wonderland. This is my maternal grandmother, who's no longer living, her copy of this book when she was young. And it says this book belongs to Dorothy Canada in Brockton, Massachusetts. It has her address, and it was a gift from Mrs. McDonald. So the spine is almost entirely falling away from it, but it's an illustrated copy of Alice in Wonderland. This piece is called Dispatch from the Racial Mountain. Boasting 300 days of sunshine, Colorado is known as one of the sunniest places in America. Having moved to Colorado Springs from the windy city of Chicago, you can imagine the allure this location held. I try, however, to subscribe to the motto of poet Terrence Hayes: never mistake what it is for what it looks like. As a Black queer woman, I am wary of America's claims of illumination. I have witnessed ghastly imaginings violently take shape through the negation or at the expense of darkness. Only things kept in the dark know the true weight of light. As Nikola Tesla professed, if your hate could be turned into electricity, it would light up the whole world. I have seen the dark underbelly of white's blinding glare. From the depths of a basement, lit with 1,369 filament bulbs, Ralph Ellison's Invisible Man asserts, the truth is the light, and the light is the truth. Growing up, telling a story and telling a lie were synonymous. In many Black households, the two words are interchangeable. I seek now to tell you a story. Within this story are only truths, bright as the magic of fire. Cold is a trickster. As a child, adult mornings forecasted that if you weren't careful about how you dressed, a cold was something you would catch. I learned early on, with my zipper biting my chin, that if you weren't cautious about what you wore and how you wore it, if you weren't intentional in your layering, thoughtful about how your body would be read once outside, then the cold would have its way with you. The cold would make its home inside your chest. After sundown, the temperature drops precipitously in Colorado Springs. Too hurried to button my winter coat, I breezed through the brisk night air of the grocery store parking lot. Once inside, the chill was mirrored by rows of heavily refrigerated aisles. I rushed through the store collecting various items, stopping in the dairy aisle last. I reached for the final thing I needed, Philadelphia whipped cream cheese. Suddenly, a white man donned in a cowboy hat appeared at my side. Beneath his hat were pointed eyes. His chest hair stood at attention, peeking out from a blue plaid shirt with milky colored snaps. His denim Levi's were not nearly as worn as his brown boots. "Did you make that dress?" he asked, as I placed the silver tub beside the cinnamon raisin bagels in my shopping basket. Under my Black coat, I was wearing a burgundy dress with embroidered turquoise flowers. "No," I replied, "I didn't." "Where did you get it?" he shot back. "I bought it," I said. "From where?" he returned. "I bought it online," I replied, "from a store called Free People." Before me was a man in seemingly authentic Western garb. There I was in a bohemian clothing company headquartered in Philadelphia. As a Black woman, it felt strange to utter the name Free People, a brand that sells apparel alongside its sister company, Anthropology, under the umbrella of Urban Outfitters Incorporated. Here in Colorado, the Made in India dress took on a new life, a different meaning in the register of the ever-present white male gaze. "Are you Native American?" the man inquired. "No, I'm not." "What is your ethnicity?" he asked. "I'm Black," I responded. "I'm African American." "No, you're not. You are Native American. I can tell you are definitely Native American." I shifted the basket of breakfast items against my hip, unsure of how to respond to his racial proclamation. I had strategically picked the nearest grocery store and planned to just run in and out. Now I stood face to face with a white man, frozen in time, in a neighborhood Safeway. as plastic-wrapped string cheese and strawberry yogurts looked on. I mentally let out an exasperated sigh as the man reached into his jean jacket pocket. He pulled out a business card and handed it to me. "I do energy work," he said, presenting me with an ombre rainbow business card, colors swirling from pink to blue-green to yellow-orange. At the top of the card was a small image of an eagle in flight. Beneath the bird was the phrase, "Gifted Cowboy," in cursive script. The card advertised a reading of Voice and Eyes and touted energy work since 1981. The name Gerald D. Oakes was listed as a radio and TV personality. On the back, detailed Gerald's ability to work with both people and animals, and his price of $20 for 15 minutes. Murmuring thank you, I slipped the card in my coat pocket and walked past the man to the checkout counter. Earlier in the day, one of the students in my advanced poetry workshop course asked if we could have breakfast on our last day of class. I had quickly driven in the biting December cold to buy a few things for the next morning. While swiping my items in self-checkout, I thought of the fact that the student who had made the request, Jake, was half Black, half Arapaho, and was raised by his mother on the Wind River Reservation in Wyoming. A talented, aspiring poet, his quiet and kind demeanor was harbored in a 6'7" frame. He was a forward on the Colorado College basketball team, who I had the pleasure of watching play. I slid him the work of former college basketball players turned poets, such as Terrence Hayes and Natalie Diaz. In his MFA application materials, and in his very personhood, he embodied one of the lines he cherished from Joy Harjo's poem, A Post-Colonial Time. I believe the word poet is synonymous with truth teller. Jake loved the work of Hanif Abdurraqib, particularly his first poetry book, The Crown Ain't Worth Much. In my class titled, This is the Remix, Sampling as Subversion in Contemporary Poetics, Hanif's latest book, A Fortune for Your Disaster, was last on our syllabus. The book contains a sequence titled, How Can Black People Write About Flowers at a Time Like This? Named after a comment Hanif overheard a white woman utter at a Black poet's reading shortly after Donald Trump's election. We spent the final days of the course watching the 2006 psychological thriller, The Prestige, which Hanif draws from for the structure of his book. As described in the film, Hanif uses the 3 parts of a magic trick as the collection's organizing principle. These 3 parts are explained in The Prestige as follows. The pledge, where a magician shows a participant something that appears normal. The turn, where the ordinary thing becomes extraordinary. And the prestige, where the ordinary thing returns to its normal state with the new understanding that it could easily become something else. The question that arises for me is, had my Black body entered into a magical metamorphosis since moving to Colorado Springs? Was I now something else entirely? A 2017 Huffington Post article had in fact named Colorado the most magical state in America. The Prestige details rival stage magicians in late 19th century London, and coincidentally highlights Colorado Springs, where one of the magicians travels to meet with the scientist Nikola Tesla. When Tesla, played by David Bowie, appeared on screen, beneath a carved wooden sign marking Colorado Springs, my students' eyes lit up. Never imagining that I would one day live in Colorado Springs, my interest in Tesla had been sparked summers before in Vermont. Accepted into Breadloaf Writers Conference as a participant in the genre of poetry, I instead chose to attend the craft talks in fiction. One such talk was led by Samantha Hunt, the author of a book about Tesla, titled The Invention of Everything Else. Her long blonde hair dangling at her side, I was enthralled with how Hunt weaved truth from the holes of a story. In a Middlebury College classroom, the likes of a large white barn, she recounted to us how she had been invited to the house and laboratory of a man who had an interest in reproducing Tesla's work. Most recently, Tesla's ideas about healing the body with electricity. Hunt told us when her children were still babies, she had driven to this mad scientist's house, accented with sleet and old snow. Once there, she undressed and descended into a basement where she intentionally exposed herself to 200,000 to 300,000 volts of electricity. She told us, as she recounts in her piece, Queer Theorem, the volts did not kill her. Surrounded by the staggering beauty of endless fields of Middlebury goldenrods, I was left with more questions than answers. When had I been closest to death? When had I invited or avoided a near-death experience? How many times have I played with fire? How many times have I almost died? Bottles of Martinelli's sparkling cider clinked together in the back seat of my car as I drove home from the grocery store. I sifted through the man in the grocery store's exchange with me, trying to put my finger on what I found to be the most troubling. What I found highly disturbing was his level of certainty, his insistence on assigning my race to me in spite of what I told him and what I know to be true. I could have more easily just agreed with his assertion. The initial fear at his approach I confined to my right hand as it clutched the bagel spread. As a Black woman, I have been trained to mentally calculate and evaluate the levels of threat surrounding me at all times. I have learned to fear both the limits and limitlessness of the white imagination. I have practiced how to quickly make mental jumps to anticipate potential danger and preemptively de-escalate a situation. I have learned how to play dead, play stupid, play submissive, feign ignorance, all in the name of avoiding a 911 call, evading being deemed a challenge to authority or a threat to the delicate racial power balance. A tinge of shame sat in my mouth. The shame at not knowing whether his viewing me as Native American would be perceived as positive or negative, friend or foe. In the uniquely constructed racial hierarchy of the United States, and now as a resident of the Southwest, was it more desirable to be read as Native American than Black? Beside the shame was a hint of sadness, a knowledge that Black or African American was a somewhat vast descriptor. I recalled my jealousy in high school when, on the first day of one of my history classes, the teacher called out each name on the roster, making guesses about the country of origin in relationship to the students' last names. Palazzolo, O'Brien, Vitale, Augustiniak, Gambaro, Bolasina, Zanaboni, Emo, Brennan were fun to guess and easy enough to get right. Then Rollins was announced. I remember the teacher's face looking up from the paper and then down at the Black face paired with the raised hand. "Where is the surname Rollins from?" she asked, with genuine curiosity about its origin. "I'm not sure," I replied. "It's probably from a slave owner," I said, casting my eyes downward. Beneath the desk, my hands now clenched, choking the yellow, gray, and green of my uniform's plaid skirt. On May 19th, 2020, I went to meet with Gerald. Just as Zora Neale Hurston traveled to Plateau, Alabama to interview 86-year-old Cujo Lewis, I drove less than 10 minutes to Gerald's home to have him explain my past, present, and future. A pale yellow thunderbird sat perched in front of the Taylor apartments. Gerald had given me directions to go to the second floor of the complex and knock on door number 7. In the midst of a raging pandemic, with Black and brown folks being killed at disproportionate rates, I played Black Indian, and Gerald played Gifted Cowboy. In lieu of horses, the center courtyard of the apartments was filled with plastic deer. Immediately inside Gerald's apartment was a desk loaded with a dozen carabiners and an assortment of keys. He reached for a sheet of paper, stating, "I'll send this home with you, but this is going to explain to you that Bill Gates and Barack Obama helped to create this virus, which was invented at University of North Carolina and then sent over to China." I'm gonna try not to laugh. Despite his belief that the virus was in fact real, I could tell that he would not take kindly to my wearing a face mask, as we had been directed to do by the Federal Department of Health. Gerald pulled out a white binder with sheets of loose leaf paper and asked if I had brought photographs as directed. I pulled out 3 photographs of my mother. Gerald was drawn towards one of the pictures of my mother on a recent trip to Colorado to visit me. In the picture, she holds a hawk on her hands covered with the falconer's glove. "See the face right there?" Gerald asked, pointing to the trees behind my mother and the hawk. "No, I don't see it." "There's a face, there's a face, there's a face, there's another face," Gerald exclaimed, pointing to different areas of the tree and sky. "This thing is loaded down with faces. Some of these are protective spirits. There's another face in the bird," he said, pointing to the feathers on the hawk's chest. "See the 2 eyes and the nose?" "Yes," I lied. "Is she married, single, or divorced?" "She's single," I responded. "She intimidates both men and women. She's too damn strong and somewhat stubborn and overly demanding." "Are you married or single?" "I'm single," I lied, given the 2 options. "Are you dating anybody?" "Yes." "Is she looking for anybody, your mom?" "I think so." "Okay, now are all 3 of these pictures of her?" he asked, tracing his fingers across each photo. "Yes." "Oh, that's very interesting, because what you have here, your mother, is what we call a changeling, what Native Americans call shapeshifters. Each one of these pictures is different. This one here, she looks like a much older person. See how low the forehead is? See how high it is here? Here it's lower. She changes the form of her body. Her breasts can be bigger or smaller. Her arms can be longer or shorter. Once she makes her mind up, it's made up. You aren't anything like her, I'll tell you that. You have an ability to see and know things, but I mean, as far as changing in forms, I don't see you doing that. I would almost bet you in one of her lives, she was a man. When she gets mad, she is kicking more male energy out than female. Nobody wants to mess with her." Shifting from the specificity of reading my mother's eyes, Gerald went on to give me more universal information. Leaning in his chair above his notebook, he continued, "What I am going to tell you, this affects everybody on the planet. There's 2 things. One is we are going to die. That's a given. The second one is your path. Whatever is on your path is on your path. You will not die until your path is completed unless you have a death experience. And that changes everything. When I had my death experience in '84, I'm not even close to being the same person I used to be." As Gerald turned his chair towards me, I peered at his 2 large earthstone rings. He looked closely at me, stating, "You have an extremely old mind. Where you have to be careful is you are just like me. You are a caretaker." "Have you ever had any kids?" Gerald asked me. "No, I don't have any children," I replied. "The 2 comes in on you pretty strong, so you could have 2 kids or you could adopt 2 kids or whatever," Gerald responded. "I got a feeling. Is your mom still alive?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "I brought recent pictures of her." "Well, I'm trying to figure out why it seems like somebody kind of pushed you in my direction." "As I told you on the phone, I was intrigued by the bird of prey on your business card," I said. Gerald responded, "I experienced being a female eagle from the waist up, and a human from the waist down, gesturing to the lower and upper halves of his body. I actually flew. And when this happened, it was at night in Wyoming with a storm blowing. And what I experienced was sunshine and heat. I could see for miles. The wing spread was ungodly, unreal. A Native American touched my head, and I had the death experience. He told me, no white man should have these abilities. But it was because I have an open mind, no fear factor, and I was in the right place at the right time. I don't drink, smoke, or do drugs. Gerald, when I met you in the grocery store, you said you believed that I was Native American. You are, he replied. But being Black, I don't really have, I started before Gerald cut me off, saying, your eyes. You've got Native American in you somewhere, and it may be a carryover from another life. Oh yeah, you could pass off for Native American just like boom, boom, boom. But you need to be carrying a taser or a gun because you've got a hell of a high speed of energy. Does that attract bad things, I asked? It attracts males that are on the dark side, that want to rape you because they want your energy. They don't want you, they want your body. They want the energy. So a high energy attracts dark energy, I asked. It attracts anybody and everybody, but the negative will be drawn to you in a heartbeat to get recharged because they're non-humans. The Bushes and the Clintons and Obamas are all reptilians. They're all non-humans and they're all demonic. Most of the Democratic Congress are non-humans. And of course, the Republicans are non-humans. They want the United States to fall so that China can take over because it's all demonic. You understand? See, in another life, you very much could have been a medicine woman. And there's a very good chance you may be one in this life because you are so sensitive, so emotional, and so caring. Now make damn sure you get a taser, not pepper spray, a taser or a gun. Because if somebody comes at you, you need something to stop them dead in their tracks. Now, how old are you right now? I'm 32, but my birthday is July 3rd, so I will be 33 soon. Gerald paused to calculate something with the information I had given. He used a blue pen, previously used as a stand-in to illustrate my partner's body, to scribble some figures on a loose leaf sheet of paper in his binder. See, 14 and 18 comes in on you really super strong. If you didn't get raped at 14 or 18, you came close. And it's all about your energy. Plus, you have bedroom eyes. And women, I said women and men both will be drawn to you. And you want to know why? Why? I responded. Because you got the same problem I got. We're kicking both energies out. We're kicking both male and female. You're kicking both male and female. So both females will be drawn to you as much as the male. But they won't, it will be a male-female woman because you're the female. Even though they are females, they will play the male part. They will see you as an easy prey because you are fragile and somewhat naive. I silently nodded my head. And I hope you're not offended. I've read thousands and thousands and thousands of people. I may never see you again and I have nothing to gain here. It's just your reading. Do you understand? What I would suggest to you, do you say prayers at night? Sometimes, not every night. Okay, it's very important you do this and I'm gonna tell you why. Whoever is guiding you, if you don't ask for anything in your prayers, they don't have a hell of a lot to do. When I say a prayer to God and my people, because I know I'm not from this planet. I'm from the Pleiadians. The Pleiadians? How do you spell that? I don't know how to spell it. I would have to get back to you on that. It's another planet. But if you want a different job, if you want a different location, if you want to travel, whatever you want, say, give me some help. I need you to focus here. Give me an idea of what direction I need to go. It's a good idea. You are going to probably see yourself as being freer to be your own self. See, in the spirit realm, time doesn't exist. It stands still. Just like there are doorways all the way up into Cripple Creek that take you inside the mountains, take you inside the planet that has been there for thousands of years. We're living on the outer edge, and inside the planet is an inner world, and there's outer space. They all three connect. You understand? Yes, I say the nightly prayers and ask for guidance. Ask to be shown in a dream or another way what's in store for me. See, if you don't pray, you're not knowing what the hell to do with yourself. But certain spirits in other dimensions are assigned to help. Ask for help. Don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to pray. This is what is going on right now. A major war between the good and the bad. The dark side is trying to take this planet over for all the wrong reasons. You understand? You have to be cautious, especially because your field is high. You're a giver and caretaker, and you have to learn how to say no and mean no, because your body is your body. Got any questions? Gerald asked. But before I could reply, he remarked, well, I gave you an extra 15 minutes. I had stayed with Gerald an hour. He charged me only $40, his rate for 30 minutes. I placed two $20 bills on the 70s print of his kitchen tablecloth as he imparted more insights for free. His last words inform me that there are over 87 different life forms on Earth. He warned me of reptilian lizards who masquerade as humans. He cautioned that not everyone that looks human is human. He had recently spoken with an 80-year-old man who had worked for NASA and Walmart, who confirmed these findings. Eventually, the hologram will stop working, Gerald said, throwing up his hands. They have to use human energy and drink human blood to maintain a human appearance. He went on to explain that the lizards have engaged in crossbreeding and are responsible for the millions of missing babies worldwide. He closed by informing me that this information was carefully removed from the Bible. As advised by Gerald, I began to pray nightly to God and my people. Like magic, brown bodies began to descend and fill the rooms of our house. As though taking a cue from Virginia Hamilton's The People Could Fly, winged beings began to appear from thin air. While watching television on a Sunday night, a form would flutter across the screen, and then another would appear headed toward the breast-shaped orb of the ceiling's light fixture. While eating dinner in the dining room, a shape would flit on the wall atop a bookcase, only to be joined with two more shadows dancing close by. In the kitchen, in the bedroom, in the living room, in our home offices, colored figures began to arrive. Miller moths. My partner swats at the moths with great delight. He takes pride in hunting them until they fall atop him, at which point he screeches in disgust. I like him in this role as protector, annihilator of insect invaders. But these moths could be our reincarnated ancestors, another advanced life form that simply refuses to take the shape of a human body. I don't say these thoughts aloud. I am silent. I sit and watch as they are killed. Thank you.
Allison, thank you so much for that amazing reading. Let's give another round of applause to Matt and Allison. Thank you. So I have just a couple little tidbits, specifically for those in the low residency creative writing program, the students. There is a student who is organizing a outdoor activity on Wednesday evening at 5 p.m. at Laurelhurst Park. Safely distance, wearing a mask. If you're in the low residency program, you can go to the homeroom journal, the journal on the creative writing page, and there's more specific information, and I'll talk about it tomorrow. That's Wednesday, by the way, that's our day off. Tomorrow morning, Matt Hart gives a talk at 10 a.m. At 11 a.m., Shauna Lipton and Sloan McNulty continue their amazing discussion about feminism and queer theory. And then at 1 p.m., Perrin Kearns is giving a talk on using writings to make short films. If you're interested in attending the talks, you can go to the PNCA Low Residency Creative Writing website and find more information. Thanks everybody for coming. Thank you. Good work. See you tomorrow. Pairing forms are due tonight at 11:59. Get it in. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Allison and Matt. Great reading.
Thank you.
Really
Thanks, Dave.
beautiful.
Great reading, Allison.
Same to you, Matt.
Just what a reading. Thank you to
You three.
Weston. Thanks so much.
You're welcome. See ya.